A crucible of conflict. The Sierra region. The Sierra region has long been a nexus of global interest and regional tension. Rich in natural resources, it occupies a strategic position in international trade routes. This has attracted the attention of global powers and fueled rivalries among neighboring nations. The region's internal politics are equally complex. A tapestry of ethnicities and religions creates a fragile social fabric prone to manipulation and exploitation. Deep-seated grievances and historical injustices fester, leaving the region vulnerable to conflict. For decades, the Sierra region has struggled to achieve lasting peace. Sporadic outbreaks of violence have punctuated periods of uneasy calm. The international community, often focused on other global hotspots, has struggled to address the root causes of the region's instability. This volatile mix of internal and external pressures created a tinderbox, awaiting a spark to ignite it. The year 2023 proved to be that fateful year. The geopolitical fault lines running through the Sierra region are deep and interconnected. Economic disparities between different groups fuel resentment and instability. The legacies of colonialism and Cold War interventions continue to cast long shadows, shaping the region's political landscape. External actors seeking to advance their own interests often exacerbate these tensions. The result is a complex and volatile environment where even seemingly minor incidents can quickly escalate into widespread conflict. Ignition, the spark that ignited a region. The immediate trigger for the 2023 Sierra War was the assassination of a prominent opposition leader. Widely respected for his calls for democratic reform and social justice, his death ignited long-simmering anger and frustration. Protests erupted across the country, met with a brutal crackdown by government forces. The situation spiraled rapidly into armed conflict, as various factions, fueled by their own grievances and ambitions, joined the fray. The government, facing a growing insurgency, responded with overwhelming military force. Cities and towns became battlegrounds, as government troops clashed with rebel groups. Both sides were accused of committing atrocities against civilians, further fueling the cycle of violence. The conflict quickly drew in external actors, each seeking to tip the balance of power in their favor. Neighboring countries with their own strategic interests and historical ties to different factions provided support to various groups. Global powers, seeing an opportunity to advance their own agendas, provided military aid and diplomatic cover. The conflict, initially a domestic uprising, transformed into a proxy war, further complicating any prospects for a peaceful resolution. Ripples of war. Global echoes of the Sierra conflict. The Sierra War sent shockwaves far beyond the region's borders. The conflict disrupted global supply chains, impacting the availability and price of essential commodities. The flow of refugees fleeing the violence strained resources and fueled political tensions in neighboring countries. The international community, grappling with the conflict's complexities and the geopolitical sensitivities involved, struggled to formulate a coherent response. The United Nations Security Council, divided along familiar geopolitical lines, proved unable to pass meaningful resolutions. Some countries imposed sanctions on the warring parties, but these measures often proved ineffective and even counterproductive. The conflict became a microcosm of the challenges facing the international order in the 21st century: rising nationalism, great power competition, and the erosion of multilateralism. The Sierra War highlighted the limitations of traditional peacekeeping operations in complex, multi-sided conflicts. It also exposed the dangers of proxy wars, where external actors fuel violence to advance their own interests. The conflict served as a stark reminder of the human cost of geopolitical gamesmanship, as civilians bear the brunt of the suffering. Section 4. A devastated land, the human cost of the Sierra War. The Sierra War has had a devastating impact on the region's people. Millions have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in overcrowded camps or embarking on perilous journeys to escape the violence. The conflict has shattered the country's infrastructure, leaving millions without access to basic necessities like food, water, and healthcare. The education of an entire generation has been disrupted, jeopardizing the region's future prospects. The war has exacerbated existing social divisions, fueling cycles of revenge and retribution. Ethnic and religious minorities have been targeted, their communities torn apart by violence and displacement. The psychological scars of the conflict, particularly on children who have witnessed unimaginable horrors, will take generations to heal. The international community has mobilized humanitarian aid to alleviate the suffering, but the scale of the crisis is overwhelming. Accessing conflict zones remains a challenge, and aid groups often face threats to their safety. The Sierra War stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict, as ordinary people pay the price for the ambitions of their leaders and the geopolitical calculations of distant powers. The Sierra War stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict, as ordinary people pay the price for the ambitions of their leaders and the geopolitical calculations of distant powers.